Hidden inside one of Minnesota's largest suburbs is a lake that was born from a block of dying ice. Around it grows a prairie that looks much the way this land looked thousands of years ago. This is Thomas Lake Park in Eagan, Minnesota, and most people outside this city have never heard of it. Under these calm paved paths lie Dakota homelands, Irish onion farms, and the ghost of a glacier. This September evening we are going to walk the loop, and I will tell you the whole story. Eagan sits on the south side of the Minnesota River in Dakota County, roughly 10 miles from downtown St. Paul. It is a city of nearly 70,000 people, laced together by about 130 miles of trails and sidewalks. Thomas Lake Park lies near the middle of the city, just off Pilot Knob Road, wrapped around the shallow lake that gives it its name. A paved loop of about 1.5 miles circles through prairie, woods, and wetland. It is the 11th of September, late afternoon, and the light is already turning gold. The first thing you notice here is how quickly the city falls away. 1 minute you are beside a busy suburban road, and the next you are walking between grasses standing taller than your head. September is the prairie's final act of the year, and it saves its best colors for the end. The air is warm, the crickets are loud, and the path rolls gently over little hills. Those hills are not an accident, and to explain them we have to go back 14,000 years. During the last ice age, this ground lay beneath a massive sheet of glacial ice. The most recent glacier to cross this part of Minnesota was a tongue of ice called the Des Moines Lobe, which pushed down from Canada and reached all the way into Iowa around 14,000 years ago. It ground up bedrock as it moved and carried the rubble along inside it like a slow conveyor belt. When the climate warmed, the Great Lobe stalled and began to waste away where it stood. Everything it was carrying, sand, gravel, clay, and boulders, dropped out of the melting ice and became the rolling hills of Dakota County. As the glacier decayed, huge blocks of ice broke free and were buried under blankets of sand and gravel. Insulated by that cover, a buried block could take centuries to melt. When it finally disappeared, the ground above it collapsed into a deep bowl, and the bowl filled with water. Geologists call these Kettle lakes, and they often lie in clusters across the hummocky ground a glacier leaves behind. Thomas Lake is one of them, a small hollow of meltwater that has been sitting here since the ice age ended. The prairie potholes and marshes scattered through Eagan are its shallower cousins, slowly filling in with plants and becoming wetlands. And there it is, about 40 acres of quiet water lying in its glacial bowl. Cattails and bulrushes ring the shoreline, and the low hills around it are the rubble that ice left behind. On a still September evening, the surface turns to glass and doubles the sky. There is no roar of motorboats here, because the city allows nothing stronger than a small electric motor on this water. What you hear instead are red-winged blackbirds, crickets, and wind moving through grass. Thomas Lake is shallow, less than 10 feet at its deepest point. Shallow water warms quickly in the sun and grows thick with plants, which makes it rich habitat for largemouth bass, bluegill, crappie, and sunfish. But shallow lakes carry a hidden danger called winterkill. When ice seals the surface for months, the oxygen in the water can run out, and whole populations of fish can suffocate before spring. To prevent that, an aeration system keeps oxygen moving through the water, and the lake is managed for fishing in partnership with the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. It is run as a neighborhood fishing lake, the kind of place where many kids in Eagan catch their very first bluegill. The trail hugs the shore here, past a fishing dock and a small canoe launch. In the evening, you can watch rings appear on the water as fish rise to feed. A canoe rack stands near the landing, and in summer paddlers slide quietly across the bay. It is a small lake with modest fish, but that is exactly the point. This is everyday wild water, 10 minutes from tens of thousands of front doors. Now the trail climbs away from the water and into the prairie, and this is the heart of the park. Before the plow arrived, tallgrass prairie covered more than 18 million acres of Minnesota, a third of the entire state. Big bluestem grass grew taller than a rider on horseback, and its roots reached farther down into the earth than the stems reached up. That deep root mass built some of the richest black soil on the planet. Today, scarcely 1% of Minnesota's original prairie survives, which makes even a restored patch like this one precious. A prairie is not simply land where trees have not arrived yet. It is a community that survives by burning. For thousands of years, fires swept these grasslands, killing the brush and tree seedlings that would otherwise shade the grasses out. Prairie plants evolved to welcome the flames because their growing points and their deep roots sit safely below the soil while the fire passes over. The Dakota understood this power and used fire to renew the land and draw game. Today, restoration crews carry on the tradition with carefully planned, prescribed burns, and a blackened prairie in spring comes back greener than ever by summer. Walk this path in September and the prairie is at full height all around you. Goldenrod burns yellow along the edges, and purple asters crowd the margins of the trail. The seed heads of big bluestem split into 3 parts, which is why the old-timers called it turkey foot. Grasshoppers scatter ahead of every footstep, and the whole hillside hums with insects. This is what late summer sounded like here for thousands of years before there was a city. Look closely at the goldenrod, and you may spot travelers fueling up for an almost unbelievable journey. September is when monarch butterflies drift south through Minnesota on their way to the mountain forests of central Mexico, a flight of well over 2,000 miles. The monarchs leaving here in September have never been to Mexico, yet they navigate to the same wintering grounds their great-grandparents left in spring. They cannot make that flight without nectar, and late-blooming prairie flowers are their filling stations. A restored city prairie like this one is a link in a chain that stretches across a continent. Stand still out here for a moment and let the sound settle. The hum of the highways fades behind the hills, and what is left is wind, insects, and birdsong. It is easy to forget that this is the middle of a city of nearly 70,000 people. That quiet is not an accident. It is something this community chose to protect. And people have been drawn to this exact landscape for far longer than Eagan has existed. This is the homeland of the Dakota people who have lived in this region for many hundreds of years. They call it Mni Sota Makoce, the land where the waters reflect the clouds, and it is the name the entire state now carries. The rivers just north and west of here, the Minnesota and the Mississippi, were the great highways of Dakota life. Their meeting place, called Bedo, is at the heart of Dakota origin stories. Uplands like this one, dotted with Kettle lakes and wetlands, were seasonal grounds for hunting, fishing, and gathering. Around 1750, a Mni Canton Dakota leader named Black Dog established a village along the Minnesota River, only a few miles northwest of this park. It grew to roughly 600 people, living on the low terraces between the river and a long backwater lake. They planted crops in the bottomlands, fished the river, and hunted across uplands like the ones you are walking now. In 1851, treaties signed at Traverse des Sioux, and Mendota forced the Dakota to give up their lands in southern Minnesota. The people were pushed onto a narrow reservation along the upper Minnesota River, and this landscape passed to settlers. Every trail is really a stack of older trails. The path you walk was paved a few decades ago, over ground farmed for a century, over hunting grounds used for millennia, over rubble a glacier dropped. None of those layers is truly gone. The prairie plants are descendants of the ones the Dakota burned and harvested. The hills still hold the shape the ice gave them. Walking here is a way of reading all of it at once. In the 1850s, immigrant farm families began claiming this land, and many of them were Irish. Among the first were Patrick Eagan, Robert O'Neill, Thomas Fanning, James Westcott, and Edward Barry. When the township was organized in 1860, it took the name of Patrick Eagan, an Irish immigrant farmer. They broke the prairie with ox-drawn plows, turning 10,000-year-old sod into fields. It was brutal work, but the black prairie soil they uncovered was astonishingly fertile. And what did Eagan's farmers become famous for? Onions. The soil and climate here suited them so well that Eagan onions were shipped across the country by the trainload. For a time, this little township was actually called the onion capital of the United States. Then a run of poor harvests and rising competition from southern growers ended the boom by about 1930. After the onions, dairy farming carried the community for another generation. It takes some imagination now, walking a paved trail with rooftops beyond the trees, to see the onion fields and dairy pastures that were here. 2 lifetimes ago, nearly everything within view was farmland. The families were few enough that everyone knew everyone, and the crossroads had names before the streets did. A handful of places in Eagan still hold that lost world. One of them is a single tree, and another is a farm. At a crossroads in northern Eagan stood a great bur oak known simply as the Lone Oak. It was the community's bulletin board, where official town notices were posted for anyone to read. Dairy farmers left their milk cans in its shade to keep the milk cool until the haulers came by. In 1974, the highway department planned to cut it down, and the community rallied to save it. 2 years later, a bronze plaque named it a cultural treasure of Eagan. The tree itself is gone now, but the lone oak lives on as the symbol of the city, stamped on its water towers, its vehicles, and its letterhead. Fitting, then, that oaks still stand along this trail. The bur oak is the classic tree of the prairie edge, and it is built for fire. Its bark grows in thick, corky ridges that shield the living wood when grass fires sweep past. Scattered bur oaks standing over prairie grass form a landscape called oak savanna, once common here and now among the rarest habitats in the Midwest. Where you see an old open-grown oak with wide-spreading limbs, you are looking at a tree that grew up with room, grass, and flame. In the southeast corner of Eagan, one whole farmstead survives to tell the story. The Holz family broke ground there in the 1870s and worked the land continuously until 1993. 2 years later, the city purchased the farm to preserve it, and it has been restored to look as it did in the 1940s. The farmstead is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Today it operates as a living history farm, where festivals let kids feed chickens and see rural Eagan as it was before the freeways came. The loop bends back toward the water now, and the light is getting serious. This is the hour photographers wait for, when every seed head on the prairie catches fire with color. The lake flashes between the trees, holding the last blue of the sky. A few walkers and joggers pass with a nod. Evening on this trail feels like a small town ritual held inside a big suburb. After the Second World War, the freeways reached south of the river, and everything changed fast. Farmland became subdivisions, and the population curve bent nearly straight up. Eagan incorporated as a village in October of 1972, and just 2 years later it became a city. In a single generation, one of the quietest farm townships in Dakota County turned into one of the largest cities in Minnesota. The onion fields disappeared under streets with names like Westcott Road, echoes of the families who plowed here first. But as the fields vanished, the young city made a decision that pays off every single day. It set aside land for parks, dozens of them, and knitted them together with that 130-mile web of trails. The Highline Trail runs across the city along a utility corridor and brushes right past Thomas Lake Park. Within this one park, the city protected a full sampler of the native landscape, a Kettle lake, wetlands, woods, and restored prairie. What could have become just another block of rooftops stayed open ground for everyone. The park earns its keep in every season. A pavilion near the shore hosts gatherings all summer, and the fishing dock rarely sits empty on a warm evening. In winter, the paths become groomed cross-country ski trails, And every Saturday morning, runners and walkers gather here for a free 5-kilometer park run, 2 laps around these paths, prairie grass on one side and lake on the other. A glacial kettle and a restored prairie, serving as a neighborhood commons. None of this stays wild by itself, and the restoration work never really ends. The prairie here was replanted and is kept healthy with seeding, weeding, and periodic burning. City forestry crews have planted hundreds of young trees in Eagan's parks, including white oak, bur oak, hackberry, sugar maple, and white pine at Thomas Lake and Ron parks. Each sapling goes in as a bet on a shadier, healthier park 50 years from now. Restoration is slow, patient work, and this park is proof that it compounds. Keep your eyes moving and the park shows you its residents. White-tailed deer slip through the wood edges at dusk, and waterfowl raft up on the bay. A great blue heron stalking the shallows is an everyday sight here in the open months. The wetland edges are nurseries, thick with frogs, turtles, and dragonflies all summer. All of it lives within earshot of a freeway, which may be the most Minnesota thing about this place. In a few weeks, the asters will fade, and the grasses will bleach to copper and bronze. A few months after that, the lake will seal over with ice, and the prairie will sleep under snow. Down in the dark water, the aerator will keep a patch of open water and oxygen flowing, so the bluegills make it through to spring. Underground, the deep prairie roots will wait out the cold exactly as they have for thousands of winters. The whole park is built to endure, and that endurance is the real show. The sun is dropping toward the tree line now, and the lake has gone completely still. The glacial bowl holds one more perfect reflection of the sky, just as it has every calm evening for 14,000 years. It is hard to believe a walk this quiet is minutes from the interstate. Places like this do not survive by luck. They survive because people keep choosing them. One small park, and look how much it holds. A dying glacier that left a bowl of meltwater. The Dakota, whose homeland this was and is. Irish farmers, onion trains, a milk-cooling oak, and a farmstead frozen in the 1940s. A suburb that grew up around it all and had the sense to leave this piece open. That is what a park really is, a place where the land is allowed to remember. If you find yourself in the Twin Cities with a free evening, give this loop an hour and see what it gives back. Thomas Lake Park is proof that you do not need mountains to find something worth walking toward. You just need ground with a story, and almost all ground has one. I hope this walk earned a place on your list. Thank you for watching. Follow for more of the trails of the world.